about you all day. Feel my mind slip away in the city of angels. Never held on so tight, like I fear for my life. Only stop cause you said so. Everybody's home while you out looking for the dream, leaving me alone. The dream was supposed to be me. Lila, I thought we could have fallen loving in late, loving in late. Lila, I thought we could have fallen loving in late, loving in late. Everybody needs something we have for whatever it is, but they wanna go for Lila. I thought we could have fallen loving in late, loving in late.
Hi, welcome back to One Voices. In this podcast, we will be talking about a relationship with our parents as Asian American teens. First, we will talk about our parental expectations and our fears and our assumptions about what they expect of us. You may remember, I'm John, and my parents and I are Korean immigrants who moved into the US in 2016. My parents, since I have moved from Korea, want me to go to some colleges that are well known even to Koreans, and I personally want to go to those colleges as well.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's a good point. That obviously, for me as well, my parents do expect me to go to some great or well-known colleges. Like for example, Ivy League colleges or other well-known colleges for STEM, and obviously I do also expect myself and want myself to go to these colleges as well. But I think my parents make a much bigger deal out of it than I do. They kind of almost seems like they want everything that I do now to revolve in some way or form around preparing for college or something from my college resume. But for me, while that's important, I definitely also want to try to balance self-care or having fun into my life as well. So I think that's kind of where it splits, but I do agree with my parents in some of those expectations.
So yeah, my parents do the exact same thing for me. They're always questioning how I can make better use of my time to think about college or what I can do to prepare for it. And even when I was younger, they would always be making it clear that I should be trying to aim for Ivy League at least. And they were always talking Harvard and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Or especially because my dad is Anglo-Saxon and my mom is Asian. My mom's always had a set plan. She always used to tell me that growing up she always knew what she wanted to do, while my dad, it took him some time to figure out. He didn't immediately go to higher education. So I've kind of been struggling with that because you want to fulfill both your parents' expectations, but my mom wants me to have a set plan, but I still don't know what I want to do with my life, and it's a big decision to make when you're still a teenager.
Yeah, definitely. I think the first time my parents talked to me about college was when I was in third grade. So growing up, everything was all revolving around college. I would be doing stuff for my own having fun for myself. But somehow it would be related to college. When I first started skating, I did it for myself. I had fun with it, and then eventually my parents talked to me about how I had to relate this to college and how this would be important for college and so on and so forth.
I think from my parents' perspective, I think I have learned to empathize with them because at least for my parents who grew up relatively poor and from a smaller town in India, the prospect of education as your only tool to succeed was ingrained into them from the start because they didn't have much growing up. So I think that translated into their parenting for me. They always tell me that they want me to have what they didn't, which was a lot, and they seem to have a lot of regrets about their education. And I understand that they want the best for me, but sometimes I feel it's just them living vicariously through me instead of them seeing what I want to pursue. But I do understand it from their side because there were a lot of dreams that they couldn't fulfill, you know? Like, they came to this country and they had to let a lot go. Yeah.
I definitely appreciate my parents for like expecting so much out of me and like, you know, helping me figure out these like, you know, their ambitious expectations of me. But I feel like at some point it's as if I'm not in control of my own life anymore because, you know, in one way or another, everything I do is in some way like fulfilling their plan for my life to like get into an Ivy League college or a very well-known college. So it's like, you know, what part of my life do I have full control over anymore? Like what part can I uniquely decide on? So, you know, it's nice obviously when you have parents that care a lot about your education and a lot about your future, but there has to be some sort of distinction at some point. I feel like I haven't quite gotten to acknowledge that distinction with my parents yet.
Yeah, I agree. Like, sometimes I think to myself and I'm like, do I really know what I personally want? Because most of what I do is because of what my parents want for me. So I don't know if I actually like want what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, like for me, I've learned to like kind of want what my parents want, almost because like they went through like everything to like even get to America. Like they had to go through so much studies and they had to dedicate their entire life, and they came to America with like very little, but they still like got to the point they are at right now. So it kind of feels like I owe them to do well and do what they want. So I've like learned to want what they want, but then I think back like, is it really what I want?
Yeah, I think something that I've learned with my parents, which could be like true for everyone's parents, is that they not only want what's best for me, but they want me to be the best. And I think that creates so much pressure. I see it a lot with my older brother where they pressure him like often about like, this is what you should do to get into college, this is what you need to do. And I think I see that like, and it pressures for me to do well. Like if I get a bad grade on the test, I feel like it's going to be the end of the world with me. And I don't know, it's kind of like, is what it is.
I agree. And I always think about, like, what will my parenting style be like when I have a child? Or, like, raise a child? Like, I don't want to repeat what my parents did, definitely. But I acknowledge that I would never trade my parents' love for anything else. Like, it all comes from a place of love. Even though it's in a very convoluted way, through the guilt tripping and like the high expectations, I want that same love to show for my child, but I want to support them like very vocally and not where I have to look for that support. You know, I feel like sometimes for my parents who actually did not want me to apply like for a liberal arts college or like for English or history or anything, they were very scared. They're terrified. They're like, how are you going to make money? How are you going to be stable? How are you going to buy a house? How are you going to pay off your debts? Like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And that's like terrifying to them. And to me too, quite honestly. But I don't know, I think about like, if I have a family in the future, how will I support them?
I think it's really the matter of you preserving your own identity and having a standard to judge. Once you understand like where all those thoughts are coming from your parents, you can actually take that as an advice instead of being so stressed out by just simply even just talking about the college and tests and stuff. For me, I think it's like a mutual trust that's been accumulated over years. My father and I have a lot of conversations about not only just college application, but like in general things. He just teaches me about different ways, like he works in like marketing and stuff. He teaches people. He just gives me some knowledge and kind of like throwing out some stuff that I could try. Like instead of like just forcing me to look for something and you should do this or that. He really just finds something on the internet or like from his companions, anything. Like even his internship program, he just throw it out to me. This is the information that you may consider to look into. And that's how I came to this internship program, which I'm really grateful of. And yeah, in that sense, parents.
Megan?
Yeah, Megan, yeah. As Megan mentioned about like parental love and stuff, of course, like everything really is from their love. And I think we should be more accepting we should accept the parents the way they are, maybe.
Yeah, like my mom is always like trying to teach me everything that she didn't learn from her parents, but she learned through life so that I can live like wiser and better. And I think also like a lot of how my parents parent is due to like culture, because at least in China, which is like where my mom is from, there's like a huge focus on education. Like sports and like arts often get like neglected a lot in favor of education, and it's just focused on a lot. And I think from that, like that's why she parents the way that she does. Like, and so through that, it's like not just parents, but it's just like the whole, at least Chinese culture, that education is focused so much on.
And I think what May was talking about like American culture, like from what I can remember, like I've always been trying to like push my limits with my mom to try to get her to like assimilate to that culture. Like I remember I went to wear these like specific type of shorts like in 3rd grade, and I was like trying to tell like this is what all the girls wear, but she wouldn't let me because like it's not like she didn't want something like too revealing for me, even though I was like a 3rd grader at the time. But like that's always been like another part about like expectations, because she's just not used to like the culture that's here, and like growing up in 2 different cultures can kind of be like a struggle too.
And I like remember an incident very similar where like I always wanted to wear shorts in the summer. Like all my friends would like wear cute shorts and like shave their legs, and I'd be like, cool. And like my mom didn't let me shave my legs until I was like in 10th grade. And by that time I was like so self-conscious, and I was like, oh, I'm hairy, I'm ugly. And she's like, no, in Indian culture like hair is beautiful. And I was like, no, all my white friends, they don't have any hair. And that like culture shock and that difference was very startling. Like at school I felt like a whole other person, and at home like I felt like a whole other person too. So who really am I? I still ask that question all the time. But like being surrounded by people who aren't like Asian American or South Asian, it's really tough, I feel, because you're just expected to act white and to be white, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, like you know the lunchbox incident like most Asian Americans face? Like, because at home, like, you love, like, your culture's food because it's, like, really good and stuff. But once you get to school, it's different because not everyone knows it. And, like, since you're so young, the kids are just kind of, like, because they expect, like American culture, like, that type of food. So it's just startling to them.
I think in terms of identity, like, about your interests being really not, like, distorted by your parents' ambition towards you. I think like having like a hobby may help you to maintain your own identity. Like you pursue what you want to do, and even like a tiny thing like those interests could contribute to you choosing what you want to do when you grow up. And I've been through that period, and now I know what I like to do. I know where my passions are at, but especially those people going through like those adolescents, definitely they struggle to know who they truly are. On the other hand, they're really being distracted at that time because you don't know who you are. And those parental advices could be, stressful. Like everything, besides just studying thing, like you don't want them to really touch you or talk to you. Everything is like, I don't know. But yeah, I get it, of course, but yeah, that's the way it is. Yeah. Everybody goes through the same period of time, and it's really it's not personal, it's universal.
Yeah,
Right.
But I feel like it also comes down to being able to communicate with your parents, and a lot of it with cultural differences, it is kind of hard to communicate sometimes. But For me, I don't really have that big of an issue with like language barriers, but my mom's English isn't like the best or the greatest, so I don't think I've had serious talks with my like dad because his English is better, but I don't think I've had like a serious talk with my mom. And in addition to having to like include like the cultural barriers, but also being able to get past the like talking for like seriously with my mom, I don't know, I don't really have that connection with her, so it's kind of hard to like talk to her about different things for that reason.
I think, yeah, it's for me there's not necessarily like a language barrier, but I don't know how to explain it. Like there's not really I don't know how to describe it because it's not like some specific thing that I can pin down. It's like very gradual, but I think over time it was just like it's just like some sort of barrier formed between me and my parents where like now I just don't ever feel comfortable talking to them about anything. There's like a lot of fear like that I have for the relationship between my parents and I, like or my parents and me, but like I don't know, it's like we all I don't know how to describe it. It's like I don't know, but like basically my parents are always like really, really controlling. It probably has to do with their expectations of like wanting me to go somewhere cool or like big or do something great. They always talk about like how, oh, you need to become a doctor or do something where you could save like thousands of lives and like change the face of history or like something like that. But I don't know, they're always just really controlling. It's like, you know, they monitor my internet usage, they put cameras in my workroom to like see if I'm doing work or something. I mean, very recently I managed to get a new computer and move into my own room, like actually stay away from my parents for a while, which I think is great. Maybe it's not necessarily the healthiest way to like, you know, maintain a relationship between you and your parents, but I think it allows me to like have my own like self, like maintain my own self, which I think is at least good for me. And then, you know, I don't know, it's like really hectic, but I think that even if there are no language barriers, like there could be like a ton of different other barriers that stop you from talking with your parents, and you know, I think that contributes to all the fear and the expectations that I think my parents have, because, you know, maybe you know, they don't actually like want me to 100% go to like this Ivy League college. Maybe they just want me to have a nice future, but I don't know that because I've never had that like deep talk with them. So I think that's also, you know, just a barrier that can happen.
Definitely. I mean, if I were the parent, I would love my children to just simply express what they have in their mind instead of struggling how to approach with it. Like, just, you know, just be frank with your parents, be honest with them. Like, they are gonna accept you. It's like their loves are unconditional. But like, besides that, I think like I'm also in like a special case almost, because my father has been through all those elite courses of being like going to the good universities. He was not raised rich, but like mediocre, like middle class. He worked hard to go to good college, go to good business, like, you know, become like the businessman where he works on what he wants to, like traveling the world. And I mean, it's funny how my dad keeps on telling me that if you go to good, like, you know, if you go to good college and get like a good grades, all you become is the businessman and having like a salary of what? Just like I think I can see him struggling in between his expectations towards me and his like in terms of academics and stuff, but I can see it's funny. It's funny how I could see my dad just struggling between his expectations towards me in terms of like going to good college and getting good grades, but also he wants me to pursue what I want to do. Like, even if you're studying hard, there should be a reason of you studying hard, and that branch, certain jobs you're looking for, it really should be you studying, I think, which kind of solved all the problems that we're having in terms of application, our future and stuff.
Your dad sounds like really fucking cool. When my dad like found out I was bisexual, when he listened to the first episode of this, it was like really fucking scary. Cause he was like, "Oh, so I watched the first episode of your podcast." I'm like, "Oh fuck." Okay, and he was like, "I heard you say you're bisexual. Is this a popularity thing that you do to be cool, or like?" I was like, "No, that's me, yeah." And he's like, "So like, does this mean you're straight and gay? Like, what does this mean?" And I'm like, "It just means that I have attraction to both males and females." And then he's like, "So, but does this mean you're gay?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, okay, good." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He was like, and then he asked me like, "So like, when you're 18, you're still gonna find a girlfriend, right?" And I'm like, "Maybe, yeah, like sure." And he's like, "Oh, okay, good." I don't know. Yeah, it was like
at 18.
I don't know, but like, it almost sounded as if he didn't want me to be gay because he wanted me to, like, I guess, carry on the family name. I don't know. I think that's like Chinese culture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cultural, and I think that's like what I think that's like what I like inferred based on what he told what that conversation was, but I don't know. Yeah.
My fear is actually spending time without being truly me. Like losing your own identity because you're so into like social media and like your phone, YouTube, anything that you just kind of waste your time when it's so precious at this moment. And I think like we all like all the students, especially high school students, they have privilege of being able to absorb as much like knowledge compared to you when you become an adult, because you're more susceptible, like, you know, your brain and stuff. So I think like I just want to spend more time like not only productive but doing what I want to do, like truly want to do. For example, writing a journal or writing a poems and stuff.
I think my like biggest fear, it still like relates to parents, but it's that I don't reach or make my parents proud, because they, like I said before, they've like done so much to get here and they've achieved like so much with the little they had, and they gave me so much, and it makes me like kind of worried that with like all that I have that they gave me, that I won't be able to achieve as much as they did. And I guess that's just like my biggest fear.
Yeah, I think same here. Like, I think one of my greatest fears is like failure, because like not only would I kind of be like failing myself because like my expectations for myself are like essentially the same as my parents, I feel like I'm also letting them down as well, especially because they put so much like time and effort into raising me to become like who I am right now, and I feel like not being able to reach their expectations kind of like wasting all that time and effort.
Because like you can get a bad grade on a test or like not to do so well on like a class or something, but like ultimately failing and like not living up to their expectations is like the biggest fear, because that's like, again, like what you said, like they put all that work and effort just for you to like not do anything with it, kind of.
I think that's like we're urged to pay back when we receive. For me, like, do you know Prestige Institution? No, you have never taken it.
What?
It's like a tutor for like SAT, ACT, even AP classes, and I'd never had it like any tutors in my life, but that was the first time that I had a tutor for ACT, and I took the ACT, and I'm kind of worried that I might not, you know, fulfill what they expected. Like really, I shouldn't be thinking like this. This is not the way. This is not the reason why my parents would have given me, you know, tutor, but still, like there's like internal guilt almost when you kind of do not meet the goals you and your parents have set up.
And you can always retake it. So that's good. Yeah. Trust me, I've retaken the ACT. And it's, yes. But I think also my greatest fear is also not being able to like pay back my parents whatever that means, like when they grow older, not being able to be there for them, or like making them proud. And I feel like me being bisexual just like throws everything out the window for them, and like that's the greatest disappointment for them. They're like, oh, she's not straight. Like that's disappointing for them because they see it as an obstacle for me, while in fact I see it as it like enriching my life, you know, being a part of the LGBTQ community. But they don't see it that way. They see it as, oh, you won't get a job, or like people will discriminate you, you will be harassed, and no one will take you seriously. No one will love you or care for you. And those are things that they've said to me. And I'm like, okay. And it's hard not to internalize those things. But I think like John said, like you can't live your life being in fear of yourself. I don't want to live my life that way. And yes, maybe my sexuality is a part of that, but I want to live like freely, like me, you know? I don't want to waste that time. And I'm sure my parents do maybe have a point, but I want them to come around eventually. And it's very scary, like living with that opposition all the time. Like sometimes I wonder, like, what would my life be like without all this opposition to like me, you know? And it sucks, but yeah.
My biggest fear, I think, regarding my parents is losing myself because of them. Like, if I get so caught up in their expectations and what they want me to do, I'm afraid that, like, I won't know exactly who I am, and it might be a bit different for me. Because, like, going back to what we said about, like, the barriers between us, there are things that I go through that my parents will never go through because them being white and me being Asian. And it's, like, also kind of hard to talk to them about it because I am Asian and they're white, so like they're not going to experience it. They could be like defensive over something I say, which I'm always scared about. But something about that is I don't want to lose the like an Asian part of me to fit with their like whole white family stuff. And we always say like, yeah, we know we're not a white family, but like to fit in with them, it feels like I'm changing a part of myself that I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it really like kind of sucks. Like,
Yeah.
No, but I mean, like, people. I feel like this is like an issue that I've also like never tried to reach out about, like all of this stuff, because it's kind of like I have this fear that if I do reach out and like try to you know, get help for these things, or like try to, you know, ask for advice, it'll just seem like I'm just afraid that people will not give me like helpful advice. Like often when you're asking someone else for like a solution, they just make it. They just like minimize it, or they just say something that they think they might see it as a simple solution, but like, you know, because these are issues that I've lived with for like literally years, right? And so like I would have thought of if I had thought of something that I think would have worked, I would have done it. But like, you know, if I can't think of anything when I'm living in this scenario for like years, you know, how can anyone else understand, right? So I don't know, it's just a fear that kind of like blocks me, I guess. I don't know. It's like, yeah, it kind of traps you in like it really does trap you. And then it's like, well, now what do I do, right? Like I don't know. Like this is obviously a problem that I want to solve, but I don't know how to solve it. And like because I've thought about this for so long, it's just like I've almost kind of accepted it, that like, you know, my life is just shit, you know, and then like and then like, you know, this is just gonna be it for the next 3 years, right? This is just my life, right? But it's like
a spiral going on right now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think that
like,
if you're not happy with how things are going, you don't have to accept it from anyone or anything.
Like even if you don't know the solution, you'll get to it at one point.
it will come through.
I think also with like, at least for me with immigrant parents, like sometimes I feel a bit like a burden because at least I can tell my mom says like all the time, she's like, oh, I wish I was in China. I wish I was with my family in China. And I'm sure that my dad also feels the same way. So obviously like me, I'm like part of the reason that they're still here. So I feel like if I'm not like succeeding their expectations and doing what they want me to do, then basically like not only am I feeling like all their effort and time, but it's also kind of like wasting like these massive sacrifices they had to make to even just be here right now.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I'm really scared that I'm harming my parents more, and like I'm like harming them, putting like they could have a much better life like without me. Like I'm just, like you said, a burden. I feel like I'm just there, and like my parents like left their family back in China just for like my brother and I, and we live like far away from them, and we have like don't talk with them that often either. So my parents kind of gave up their entire life for me, and that just makes me feel really guilty, and also it makes me scared to talk to them about a lot of stuff, especially like my mental health. And because like they're always like, oh, you can talk to us about anything, but like when I like started to open up about my mental health like earlier sometime last year, it like hurt them, and I saw like the pain that they saw like when they like knew about what I was thinking and stuff, and it just made me think like I don't want to tell them anymore. And
yeah, because like then I feel like I'm burdening them even more than I already am. And like especially with COVID and China borders closing down, so like my mom can't visit her family, like I feel like me being here is like kind of preventing her from like living how like what she would see as her like happiest life.
Yeah, same.
Well, I think a lot what we talk about when we talk about immigrant parents, like when you tell them about your struggles, it like doesn't compare to their struggles. So like
exactly.
It just doesn't feel valid because they've gone through so much more. So like you just like don't size up to their problems.
Right.
Exactly,
Just like
exactly.
it doesn't make you feel valid in what you're feeling.
I agree. And also like as a teenager, I know sometimes I treat my parents like shit sometimes. Like I snap at them, yell at them, be like, get out of my room, or like I don't want to talk to you. And that makes me feel so bad. Like, why can't I just be a good person to them?
Yeah, me too.
Because like they've gone through so much, and like they put up with it, and I don't know how. And I wish I treated them better. I really do. Like, I wish I could show them that love. Yeah.
I also feel like the same way. Like they've given up a lot for me, and since like I was adopted, they just like adopting me gave me a whole new chance at like a life. So I feel burdened by that because I feel like I have to live up to how they've changed my life like forever. If I don't live up to that, I feel like I don't know what the right word is of like if I don't feel enough, like if I didn't live up to them giving me a whole new life, then it's kind of like I'm disappointing myself and them. And I do feel bad when I like snap at them or like am mean to them, and I do think they deserve, and I always feel like they deserve like better than what I'm saying, better than the way I'm treating them because they gave me this new life. So it's like kind of hard to just like be a normal teenager who snaps at their parents when I feel so burdened. Yeah.
I think it's important to also ask the question, like, what we want from our parents. And I think personally for me, it's to kind of ask my parents to take my mental health seriously, in that asking for therapy is something that I've always wanted to do, but that jump to ask for therapy and to actually get the therapy from my parents has been a struggle because they're very unwilling to acknowledge that I live with depression and anxiety, and they see it as like it doesn't even exist. And so it's been basically what they've told me to do is like pray. And I'm like, okay. And that obviously doesn't help. And I want them to take like my struggles with mental illness seriously, in that I do want therapy and I need therapy, and it's okay to ask to need therapy, and to acknowledge like my emotional like being and well-being, you know?
Yeah, I relate with you. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm gonna be a bad kid, but in a good way. I was raised independently, and I found what I'm supposed to do and did it. And I mean, even if they provide me so well, like overflowing. Sometimes I feel like they're not really giving what I want from them. Like what I want from them is not something so grand, really. It's just the empathy. Like just them empathizing with my situation and my emotion. I didn't ask for a solution. I didn't ask for like help, like actually helping me throughout the way. And I mean, I'm not gonna give up my work. I'm gonna do my work, and I can take control of my own circumstances, even if I get busy. And when the result does not come, you know, when the outcome is not fulfilling your expectations and all. Because I know who I am. I know what I should be doing to develop my own self. I write a journal to help me with it. But sometimes you just need emotional support from your parents. And whenever I need someone to lean on, sometimes they're just not there for me, which I think is really hard, like not only to me, but in terms of the relationship you're having with your parents, because you kind of lose the trust, and you begin to kind of discourage your own self to express and communicate with them. You turn to your own, you know, self instead and decide not to talk. That's not a good way of dealing with all this situation, I think. It's, even if that's the case, you still have to reach out to them and tell them that I need emotional support. You got to express it in a way that they understand the hardship you're going through, that they acknowledge it, and they could think their own way to kind of console their children. That's a healthy relationship we can look forward to.
Yeah. What I want from my parents is like less guilt trip, I guess, because I think I did kind of show that I needed help. Like it got to a really bad point, and so I had therapy for one period of time. It lasted like a month, because my parents kind of guilt tripped me into thinking like, oh, you're fine, you can handle this without therapy. And they kind of also told me like therapy costs a lot of money, you know, this is costing a lot on my bank, like yes, I'll give it to you if you need it, but like I don't think you need it anymore. And eventually I was like, okay, I don't need it anymore. And the joy they had when I told them I didn't need it anymore, I kind of like take it back. So yeah.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like this view of therapy and mental health is kind of like cultural. It's. I feel like I've had like the experience of this as well. Not like that I've ever had therapy, but I probably like would take therapy like if I felt like my parents would support me with it. But I feel like there's kind of maybe that culture, or like you said, like that guilt trip that kind of, you know, stops me from finding it. But yeah, I think that's by far the most effective or the best way to address these problems, but it's definitely not available to everyone given the circumstances.
Is anyone eldest child here? Like,
Yeah.
Definitely, like in Asian culture, there are more burdens to the eldest child that you think you need to pay back and like support the whole family one day. And I think that's another contributing factor of being so stressed out by these things.
You know, my family's like different than that. Like, I don't really know why it is, but just in my family, my older brother like made it clear that I'm supposed to be the golden child, that I'm supposed to be the one that has all this pressure on me, because my brother feels like he already has too much pressure on him, so he wants me to be the one that like meets our parents' expectations and like doesn't fail through life, which can also be hard.
Yeah, and I feel like in a lot of cultures, like you have to have like, at least for Chinese culture, you need like a strong face. Like you can't show weakness, and that burden always will fall on like whoever is considered like the golden child or like the eldest child, like John said. And I guess because of that, for me personally, I wish like my like parents would listen to me more, because of like the strong face. You're like not supposed to show like weakness or anything like that. So I wish they like listen to me when I'm talking to them about like my problems, which they already do a lot. But I feel like I wish they would listen to me on like a deeper level.
Yeah, like they don't necessarily take you seriously. Is like what it. Yeah.
Or like they never can like really accept like their fault sometimes, like, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
because it's a lot from like respect. And I think in Asian culture, like, you're supposed to respect your elders, so it's kind of a situation like the power dynamic, I guess, in a way that they're like they can't do like as much bad as like you can do. So like
Yeah.
I would really want them to like see their perspective and say like, I've made mistakes and you've made mistakes, but like it's okay to do that as long as we like accept it.
Yeah, it's like you're always wrong. It's never them. you
And
know?
like growing up, because I'm also the oldest child, like seeing my brother also have to experience that, and like now we can talk about it, like we're at the age where we can talk about it. But I wish I could have that conversation with my parents and be like, this is like, sometimes this is where like I want change to happen.
Yeah.
And because you're the oldest child, I mean, for your parents, it's the first time like raising, like parenting you too. Like they're going through our adolescence too, and they're trying to learn how to, you know, have a relationship with their children, which of course it's hard, not for just us, but for the parents too.
Yeah, and it's like us learning to be teenagers, they're learning to be parents. Because like you're never taught how to be a parent, I guess. You learn from your own parents, which, I mean, at least for my parents, like my grandparents were very strict and distant and weren't really always there, like emotionally, like John said. That's what you crave for, and that absence can influence your own parenting. So, yeah, it's a learning curve, and there's definitely mistakes made on like my part and my parents' part.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, for me, I've, like, noticed, I think my dad needs a lot of help as well, like, mentally, and obviously he won't listen to me about it, and he thinks that he needs to stay, obviously stay strong because of Chinese culture, but at the same time, it's because of that I also have to struggle in silence without them knowing. They were, like, kind of embarrassed of me when I was, like, in the hospital. They're like, don't tell any of your friends, don't, like make them an excuse, just, like, yeah. So it's just kind of sad that I have to like kind of live in silence without like expressing it, and I feel bad for my parents too, because I think they're struggling as well, but they can't express it either. So
Yeah, like when I was younger, like my parents would always be like, oh, don't tell anyone outside the family.
yeah.
Like whatever is told in the family has to stay in the family. You can't tell anyone else.
Yeah, and it's like this fear of what other people will say. And like, do I give a shit about what other people say? No, but my parents do. And that's very hurtful to them.
I mean, actually, I think the family should be the place where you're really accepted, instead of, like, you know, in the world, you're really trying to assimilate it to any, like, not only ethnicity or any kind of, like, race, but in general, like, community. You try to, you know, blend into them, like, into the society. And really, like, the family is the only place you could be comforted. And I think, like, unconditional positive regard, definitely, like, parents should be more accepting. It's not totally on your fault that you, like, I mean, it's good that you understand your parents' side and try to view things in their perspective, but it's not like your fault all the time. I mean, they take time, the parents take time, you take time as well. So it's really not like who did what and who did something bad. It's really the matter of, like, I can't think of the word. Negotiation?
No, it's that's funny. Like the dynamic is, you know, I feel like how you said, like, in the family, you're, like, absolutely, that's where you're trusted, or like where you can be yourself, and then you're when you're out in society, that's where like you have to assimilate to culture. It's almost as if like that's the other way around for me. Like I have friends, including you guys, who are very supportive and who I can say things to that I would never like be able to talk to my parents about. It's almost as if like I don't know. It feels kind of like reversed in that way, basically.
And honestly, like, the main reason why I joined this podcast was to, like, find that. Like, at my school, there's not a lot of Asian American kids, nor do people seem to go through similar things. So I was like, I need to seek this out. Like, maybe that's one of the first ways that you can address these feelings, is to seek out people to talk to, and maybe you have a podcast near you or start one. Like, I mean, I think this has, even though we've had only a few podcasts, like, it's truly been so meaningful to be able to talk about these things that have just like been in my head ever since I was, I don't know, like just learned, like experienced all of these things. So we hope that this conversation also inspired you, and you could also perhaps relate to us as well, and also find that courage within yourself that you always have had to meet other people and to seek out therapy, to start journaling, to start your own podcast, to also speak to your parents and communicate things you maybe wouldn't have done before. And thank you so much for listening to our podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thought about you all day, felt my mind slip away in the city of angels. Never held on so tight, like I feared for my life. Only stopped 'cause you said so. Everybody's home while you were looking for the dream, leaving me alone. The dream was supposed to be